The New York Times, they've got some internal issues that they've got to deal with there. I don't know if I want to pull up anything from them anymore. Like, I knew it was bad, but this bad is kind of wild. That's kind of crazy. So this is a super important story. I know we've been talking about Israel Gaza a lot, but it's a really important topic going on right now, and something incredible just dropped. A couple of days ago, The Intercept released an article basically exposing the New York Times article from the beginning of the war, or closer to the beginning of the war in December, where it talked about how Hamas, it claims, used violence against women specifically as a tool, as specifically a tool of war against Israel and Israelis. And they found allegedly that this is incredibly poor reporting, and the danger of it is more than a lot of people understand. Like the problems with the journalism, it shows a much larger problem with how our journalistic institutions treat these wars, atrocities, and how we could easily be getting lied to about some of the most important things going on across the world. So I haven't actually fully read this New York Times article before. I've skimmed it, but I haven't actually looked at the entire thing. So I think it's time to do that. And then let's look at the Intercept article to get a full picture and then come out to understand what actually happened here. At first, she was known simply as the woman in the black dress. In a grainy video, you can see her lying on her back, torn dress, legs spread, exposed. Her face is burned beyond recognition, and her right hand covers her eyes. The video was shot early in the hours of October 8th by a woman searching for a missing friend at the site of a rave in southern Israel, where the day before, Hamas terrorists massacred hundreds of young Israelis. The video went viral with thousands of people responding, desperate to know if the woman in the black dress was their missing friend, sister, or daughter. One family knew exactly who she was. Gal Abdush, a mother of two from a working class town in central Israel, who disappeared from the rave that night with her husband. As the terrorists closed in on her, trapped on a highway, as the terrorists closed in on her, trapped on a highway in a line of cars, people trying to flee the party, she sent one final WhatsApp message to her family: "You don't understand." Based largely on the video evidence, which was verified by the New York Times, Israeli police officials said they believe that Abdush was assaulted, and she became a symbol of the horrors visited upon Israeli women and girls during the October 7th attack. So let's take a look at this here. So this is the first, I guess, big claim. Based largely on video evidence, which was verified by the New York Times, Israeli police officials said that they believed she was assaulted. So let's hold this, because this is a big claim here. Video evidence that they believe they were assaulted. Okay. And so, verified by the New York Times, it seems like this just means that they saw the video, that the video is there. Whether or not the video shows anything is another thing. Even if every claim in this article is true, it doesn't justify the indiscriminate murder of over 13,000 children. True. But thankfully here, we're not stupid, so we don't have to believe that. We don't have to always touch on that. We can figure out if this reporting is true. Because I think one of the really big things I want to understand is how bad is the New York Times? Because if this article is as bad as I've heard a lot of people say that it is, then the New York Times might even need to be shut down. So Israel just said it, and then it was just taken as face value that the Israeli military should just believe whatever they say. Israeli officials say that everywhere Hamas terrorists struck, the rave, the military bases along the Gaza border, and the kibbutzim, they brutalize women. Okay. Israeli officials say they brutalized women. Sure. Okay. So yeah. So Netanyahu says that bad things happen to women. Okay. Doesn't seem like the best reporting, but okay, we'll just see. Yeah. They did just say that. Whether or not that's true, that's another thing. A 2-month investigation by the Times uncovered painfully new details, establishing that the attacks against women were not isolated events, but a part of a broader pattern of gender-based violence. Okay, so this is also a really big thing. So they found out that this is a really large, coordinated attack specifically against women committed by Hamas. Okay, sure. So I've heard things like this, like the Hamas gave their militants how to assault women guides that were found on their bodies, that were given. There was like a rape how-to pamphlet that they had that was given to them, that the Israeli military found on their persons after they were neutralized. Which I'm not sure if that's true. I don't know if that's true. The Israeli military is known to say a lot of things. So I don't know. Let's just go through the article. Relying on video footage, photographs, GPS data from mobile phones, and interviews from more than 150 people, including witnesses, medical personnel, soldiers, and assault counselors, the Times identified at least 7 locations where Israeli women and girls appeared to have been assaulted or mutilated. 4 witnesses described in graphic detail seeing women assaulted and killed at 2 different places along Route 232 and the same highway where Miss Abdush's half-naked body was found sprawled on the road at a 3rd location. So very real. So here's another thing. Like 4 witnesses described in graphic detail seeing women who were assaulted, okay? Along these areas. My thing is here. So here's the thing, okay? This was released in December, late December, is that right? This was released in late December. My thing is, why is it just hearsay right now? Right? Isn't this 2 months after over 2 months after the attack took place, almost 3 months after the attack took place? Where's more serious evidence than just witness accounts and hearsay about about this type of stuff? Because I feel there were so many videos, there were so many recordings, there's so much stuff, but it's just right now it's just hearsay about they said they saw somebody who was assaulted. They said they saw bodies that they think were assaulted, but there's no just here's more evidence than just that, right? The Times interviewed several soldiers and volunteer medics who together described finding more than 30 bodies of women and girls in and around the rave, and 2 kibbutzim and similar states as Miss Abdish's, legs spread, clothes torn off, and signs of abuse in their genital areas. Okay. So several soldiers and volunteer medics. So soldiers and volunteer medics were interviewed here. Okay, so let's highlight this one. That's who we were talking about. Sure. Many of the accounts are difficult to bear, and the visual evidence is disturbing to see. The Times reviewed photographs of women's bodies that emergency responders discovered in the rubble of besieged kibbutz, and dozens of nails driven through her thighs and groin. So this is another big thing. Has this ever been? Okay, wait. Let's see. Reviewed photographs of one woman's body that had nails driven through their thighs and groin. So did it look like someone did it? I want to take this off screen real quick. Where'd this claim come from? I see APAC reviewing it. I see it on Twitter. So who is this? Okay, so it seems like a lot of this does come from a private screening of 45 minutes of video put together by Israel about the attack itself. Yeah, it seems like that's one of the things that was in there. There's one person here who said they went and they described one of the things that, some of the things that they saw. Hamas terrorist walks up to the gate. Yeah. Okay. All right. So words from the IDF. Sure. We keep reading. The Times reviewed a video provided by the Israeli military showing 2 dead Israeli soldiers near the gate of Gaza who appeared to have been shot directly in their genitals. shot directly in their privates. Hamas has denied Israel's accusations of violence against women, specifically in this way. Israel activists have been outraged by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and the agency UN Women did not acknowledge the many accusations until weeks after the attacks. Okay, I want to see this, like, acknowledge these accusations until weeks after the attacks. Well, probably mostly because they were unverified for a little while, right? So this is the statement. We deeply regret that military operations have resumed in Gaza. We reiterate that all women, Israeli women, Palestinian women, and other women are entitled to life and safety and free from violence. We unequivocally condemn brutal attacks by Hamas on October 7th. Alarmed by the numerous accounts of gender-based atrocities and sexual violence that occurred in those attacks. This is why we have called for all accounts of gender-based violence to be duly investigated and prosecuted with the rights of the victim at core. Okay. Investigators with the Israel's top national police unit, Lahav 433, have been steadily gathering evidence, but they have not put a number on how many women were assaulted, saying that most are dead and buried, and that they will never know. No survivors have spoken publicly. This is one thing. No survivors, not one. Wait, is that not one? Okay, so here's the thing: is that the reason why I haven't talked too much about this is because I usually like to talk about things that we have some evidence for, like video evidence or something from like somebody who's specifically there or experienced something themselves, like firsthand accounts. In this, it's really easy to bring up secondhand, third-hand accounts of things that happen. So firsthand accounts of a lot of stuff are things that I like to bring to you because it's way harder to be able to, mess with that type of stuff. It's easier to verify whether or not something happened to you rather than it's hard. On the other hand, it's much harder to verify you saw something somebody else did, right? So that's something that I like to think about. But I think it's wild here to December 28th or 29th, whenever this was released, in late December, no survivors have come up publicly to speak out. Not one? Because I thought, like, this family here, I thought the women here were victims. Are they not? Are these not victims? Right here? Are these just people who said that they saw other victims? Feels like they're being silenced. The Israeli police have acknowledged that during the shock and confusion of the 7th, the deadliest day in Israeli history, they were not focused on collecting semen samples from women's bodies, requesting autopsies or closely examining crime scenes. What? The Israeli police acknowledged that they were not focused on examining crime scenes. Well, how do you know which attack was from a Hamas militant and not just like another type of crime that was around if you weren't examining any crime scenes? At that moment, the authorities said they were intent on repelling Hamas and identifying the dead. Oh, how do you? Okay. The combination of chaos, enormous grief, and Jewish religious duties meant that bodies were buried as quickly as possible. Most were never examined, and in some cases, like the rave scene, there are more than 360 people who lost their lives in a few hours. The bodies were hauled away by truckload. That left the Israeli authorities at a loss to fully explain to the families what happened to their loved ones in their final moments. Miss Abdusha's relatives, for instance, never received a death certificate and they are still searching for answers. How can you make such wild claims when you never even looked at any of the bodies? This is wild. Okay. Wait, maybe we're still getting into like the part where they did their investigation right now for the stuff that they found, because it seems like the police have not been able to find much. In cases of widespread violence against women during the war, it's not unusual to have limited forensic evidence, experts said. Armed conflict is so chaotic. Adil Adelhaik, a Rutgers law professor and war crimes expert, people are more focused on their safety than building a criminal case down the road. Very often, Crimes against women will be persecuted years after on the basis of testimony of victims and witnesses. The eyewitnesses might not have known the name of the victim, they added, but they can still testify, saying, "I saw a woman being harmed by this group of armed guards, and that can be enough." Screams without words. Okay, so here's like the big title: Screams without words. So basically, very often there's no evidence. Okay, we'll spit like direct evidence. Superior 26-year-old accountant would become an Israeli police's key witnesses. She does not want to be fully identified, saying that she would be hounded for the rest of her life if her last name was revealed. She attended the rave with several of her friends and provided investigators with graphic testimony. She also spoke to the Times in a 2-hour interview outside a cafe in southern Israel. She recounted seeing groups of heavily armed gunmen assault at least 5 women. She said at 8 a.m. October 7th, she was hiding under the low branches of a bushy Tamarsk tree just off Route 232, about 4 miles southwest of the party. She had been shot in the back. She felt faint. She covered herself in dry grass and laid as still as she could. Okay, let's do this. She said she was there, and she said she was shot in the back and felt faint, and then stayed there. So she was watching though, but from under. Some of these pictures might possibly be a little graphic. So while I'm scrolling, I'm going to take it off screen because there's a picture here of a destroyed kibbutz. About 15 minutes from her hiding place, she said she saw motorcyclists, cars, and trucks pulling up. She said that she saw about 100 men, most of them dressed in military fatigues and combat boots, a few in dark sweatsuits, getting in and out of vehicles. She said men congregated along the road and passed between them with assault rifles, grenades, and small missiles, and badly wounded women. It was like an assembly point, she said. The first victim she saw was a young woman with copper hair, blood running down her back. Right, and then she described, and then she described like an assault taking place. Right, she watched another woman, in her words, shredded to pieces. One continues to that she describes more assault. We don't have to read all that. So I'll save you all from hearing that. She just describes the assaults, the alleged assaults. Sapir provided photographs of her hiding place and her wounds, and police officials have stood by her testimony and released a video of her with her face blurred, recounting some of what she saw. All right, provided photographs of her hiding place and wounds. Okay, since that day, she said she struggled with a painful rash that spread across her torso. She can barely sleep. Okay. The day I became an animal, I was emotionally detached, sharp, adrenaline, just the adrenaline for survival. I looked at all this as if it was photographing them with my eyes, not forgetting any detail. I told myself, I should remember everything. The same morning along Route 232, a different location, about a mile southwest of the party area, Raz Cohen, a young Israeli who attended the rave, and had worked recently in the Democratic Republic of Congo training Congolese soldiers. Oh, so here's something that I heard recently, is that Israel has a role in like the war crimes going on in the Congo. I haven't looked into any of those claims, so I can't tell you if they're true or false, but there's some terrible things going on in Congo at the moment. The Democratic Republic of Congo. Oh, yeah, it seemed like one of these guys was working in the Republic of Congo to train Congolese soldiers. Said that he was hiding in a dried up stream bed, provided some cover from the assailants, combining the area and shooting anyone they found. He said an 1.5-hour interview in a Tel Aviv restaurant. Maybe 40 yards in front of him, he recalled a white van pulling up and the doors flew open. He said that he saw 5 men wearing civilian clothes, all carrying knives and carrying a hammer, dragging women across the ground. They all gathered around her, and then he describes a crime. Shoma Gutea, Shoma Gutea, one of Cohen's friends and a fashion designer who said the two were hiding together in the stream bed. He said he saw at least 4 men step out of the van and attack the women. And then they ended up between her legs, he said. Hours after the first wave of volunteer emergency medical technicians arrived at the rave site, in interviews, 4 of the men said that they discovered bodies of women with underwear missing. Some of their hands had been tied with rope or zip ties, they said. Jamal Waraki, a volunteer medic and nonprofit at Zaka Emergency Response Team, said he could not get out of his head the young woman in a rawhide vest between the main stage and the bar. Her hands were tied behind her back. She was naked. Yinan, member of the rave's production team who lost 2 brothers in the attack, said that they were hiding from killers. Okay, and they once again describing an alleged crime against women. Similar discoveries were made in 2 kibbutzim. 8 volunteer medics and 2 Israeli soldiers told the Times that at least 6 different houses they had come across a total of 24 bodies of women that they said had crimes committed against them. A paramedic in Israel's commando unit said that they had found the bodies of 2 teen girls. Basically what this says, what it is, just like a recounting of people who say that they're witnesses at the event, and basically what the Israeli government put together for it's like stuff they found and stuff the Israeli government put together to show other people. Okay, because his job was to look for survivors. He said he kept moving, but he did not document the scene. Okay, so he said that he found two women who were possibly assaulted, but he said because his job was to look for survivors, he kept moving and did not document the scene. Neighbors of the 2 girls who were killed said they were young. They were alone. Israeli military allowed paramedic to speak to reporters on the condition to not be identified because they serve in an elite unit. Many of the dead were brought to Shura military base in central Israel for identification. Here too, witnesses say they saw signs of violence and prepare the bodies. You've seen 4 signs of violence. Okay. So it seems like I don't know because it said that so here's one thing where this person, Shari Mendez, an architect, was called up as a reserve soldier to help prepare bodies for burial. And she said that she identified signs of violence. But the thing is, like, you're just an army reservist. How do you really know that? Well, I don't know that. I guess that's what she said. But she's just like an army reservist to like identify bodies, not like examine them. But okay, sure. I'm gonna mark it. A dentist captain Mayan, who worked in the same identification center, said that she saw at least 10 bodies of female soldiers with signs of violence. Mayan asked to be identified by only her rank and surname and sensitivity of the subjects. She said she had seen several bodies with these types of marks that she had seen, that she describes. The Israeli authorities have no shortage of video evidence from the October 7th attack. They have gathered hours of footage from Hamas, body cameras, dash cams, security cameras, mobile phones, like all this type of stuff of Hamas committing crimes in many of the bodies. But Moshe Fincy, a deputy superintendent and senior spokesman for the Israeli National Police, said, we have zero autopsies, zero. Making an O with his right hand. We have zero. There, Mushy. Yeah, sure, okay. Mushy. There's 0 autopsies, literally none, not one. Okay. In the aftermath of the attack, police said forensic examiners were dispatched to the military base to help identify the bodies. Around 1,200 people were killed. The examiners were quick to give agonizing families missing sense of closure determined by process of elimination who was dead and who was being held hostage. According to the Jewish tradition, funerals are held promptly, and the results was that many bodies with signs of violence were put to rest without medical examinations, meaning that the potential for evidence now lies buried in the ground. International forensic experts say it would be possible to recover some evidence from the corpses, but it would be difficult. Flint said Israeli security forces were still finding imagery that shows women. Finch said the Israeli security forces were still finding imagery that shows women being harmed. Sitting at his desk at an imposing police building in Jerusalem, he swiped up on his phone and tapped to produce a video of two soldiers shot. There's two soldiers shot in their privates, but he said it was recorded by Hamas gunmen and recently discovered. So they said that they found video evidence, but that's just women being killed. A colleague sitting next to him, Merit Ben Mayer, a police chief superintendent, said she believed the brutality against women was a combination of two ferocious forces, anti-Semitism and misogyny. Some emergency medical workers now wish they had documented more of what they saw. In interviews, they said they had moved bodies, cut the zip ties, all this type of stuff, and then prepared them for burial. Many volunteers working at Zaka emergency response teams are religious and under strict rules to command deep respect for the dead. I did not take any pictures. I was not allowed to. I have regret over that. These three women who they believe, there are at least three women and one man who were assaulted and survived, according to Gil Horev, a spokesperson for the Israeli military and welfare and social aid. None of them have been willing to come physically for treatment, he said. Two therapists said they were working with women who were assaulted at the rave, and they're on no condition to talk to investigators or reporters. Okay, so they said that there were three. Okay, so this is a big one. So they said that there are three survivors, but none of them decided to talk to the IDF. Three, but none of them, not any three of them decided to talk to the police. Okay. Yeah, apparently all of them were assaulted, and like talking about the assaults talking about the crimes that happened, it seems like they were pretty bad, but none of them went in for medical treatment, and none of them went to talk to the police. I kind of don't blame them for not trusting the IDF. Okay, but like not the IDF and not reporters either. No news, no doctors. No authorities. They just vanished off the face of the map. Wasn't there also reported a lot of brutality to two Israeli civilians by the IDF? Yeah, basically, so what was happening is when the IDF was like, oh, we got to stop this, they saw that Hamas might be taking some hostages. So it was reported that instead of them trying to work on the hostages' safety, they decided to just kill everybody. They went with like a scorched earth policy of killing as many people as possible and hopefully everyone. So they couldn't get back into Gaza. Their number one thing is like make sure nobody gets back into Gaza and not make sure that everybody got home safe. Like their own civilians got home safe. That's what was kind of said. That was reported recently. Yeah, but they'd like need medical help. That's what I was kind of thinking, that they would need medical help, but apparently there's not even medical. They didn't even go to medical. So this type of violence clearly happened. It seemed I would believe that it had happened. What Israel's trying to say is that it was specifically done as a policy by Hamas to commit as many crimes against women as possible. Like it was. They had like assault women pamphlets, right? That they were going on. That it was like an organized event to commit as many crimes like of the sexual variety as possible, right? The trauma from assault can be so heavy sometimes survivors do not speak up for years. Many people who are looking for golden evidence, somebody who would testify about what happened to her, but don't look for that. Don't put pressure on this woman. executive director of assault centers in Israel, said the corpses tell the story. But the thing is, yeah, but sure, I would, yeah, I can definitely agree with that. But the thing is, like, they didn't examine almost any of the corpses. They said they didn't examine like almost any of the bodies. Actually, there was no actual medical examination on, it seems, any bodies that they claimed were victims. Just none. But yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of witnesses, like witness statements. So there probably something happened, right? But as Israel said it did, I don't know. But we'll see. The woman in the black dress. And one of the last images of Miss Abdush alive, captured by security cameras mounted on her front door, shows her leaving her home with her husband. She was wearing jeans. You have to live your life and make your last moments. That was her motto, her sister said. All right, let me see. I don't want to scroll, and this picture's like terrible now. Okay. At daybreak, hundreds of terrorists closing in the party from several directions, blocking highways. A couple jumped over. It's a string of messages and they moved. We're on the border. Miss Abdush wrote to her family, "We're leaving." Explosions. Husband made his own calls to his family. "Take care of the kids. I love you." Gunshots were out. Car mechanic drove to the rave site with 3 friends. He said Abdush. Then they found her body. The car burned. Wait. Eden Weasel, a car mechanic, drove to the rave site with 3 friends and found her body on the road in the burned car about 9 miles north of the site. She did not see the body. Wait, what is this sentence? That night, Eden Wesley, a car mechanic, drove to the rave site with 3 friends and found the body next to her burned car about 9 miles north. She did not see the body. What? Ah, the body of Mr. Okay, there we go. Thank you. AI written? No, it's just me. So they found the wife. They didn't find the husband. Okay. She saw other burned cars in the area. Shot some videos of several, hoping that they would help people to identify missing relatives. Posted a video of a woman in a black dress on Instagram. She was messages. Hi, based on your description of the woman in the black dress, did she have blonde hair? Eden, the woman you described, you remember the color of her eyes. Some members of the family saw it. Their friends immediately suspected it was her body and that she might have been assaulted. Here, I think I definitely got to put this one away. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was like, there might be something terrible there. So I'm very happy that I decided to take that off screen. I think include footage of her body in a presentation made to foreign governments and media organizations. Her body is a representative of the violence committed against women that day. Using her body as a representative of the violence committed against women that day. Okay. Let me scroll to make sure there's not anything else crazy. We're almost at the very end. So let's see. A week after the body was found, 3 government social workers appeared at the gate of the family's home in this town, a small town in central Israel. They broke the news that they had been found dead. Ooh, and the only document of the family recognized was a 1-page form letter from Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, expressing his condolences and sending a hug. He sent a hug. The body of Miss Abdush was identified 2 days after. Sorry, the body of Mr. Abdush was identified 2 days after his wife and was badly burned. Investigators determined who he was based on DNA samples from his wedding ring. Wait, is this the only time they did? Okay, only time they did a DNA sample? Yeah, XOXO. Can you imagine? Your family member is dead. XOXO. Isaac Herzog. The couple had been together since they were teenagers. To the family, it was only yesterday that they saw Abdush. Okay. The boys are now orphans. Correction. An earlier version of this article misstated the age of Sapir, the woman who became one of the eyewitnesses. Okay. She's 26, not 24. Okay. So with that being said, let's go to the Intercept. Because the Intercept said, because the Intercept made Between Hammer and the Anvil, story behind the New York Times October 7th expose. So let's see a little bit about what was going on here. Let me scroll through this really quick. I hope there isn't anything that would get my account banned by showing it. I don't want to get banned today. I like my job. I do not want to get banned. No dead bodies. No people crushed into paste. Nope. Okay. Epic. We're good to go. Let's check out what the Intercept had to say about all this, because I heard it may put some holes into the story that the New York Times put together. Let's see what we got. And that Schwartz had a problem. The Israeli filmmaker and former Air Force intelligence official had been assigned by the New York Times to work with her partner's nephew, Adam Sela, a veteran New York Times reporter, Jeffrey Gettleman, on investigation into violence against women, mostly by Hamas on October 7th, that could reshape the way that the world understood Israel's ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. Okay, so it seems like this is how they're gonna. Somebody said that that they were hinging a lot of their arguments on how this article would shape people's views of the war, and I feel like the article it is quite impactful. I will say, maybe not the whole world, but we'll see. I see a lot of people. I do see a lot of people linking back to this article when talking about this type of stuff. They weren't. Yeah, I'm not sure about changing the whole world, but I mean, I guess could reshape the world understanding of the war. It's a little much, but we'll see. Let's continue on. We got a lot of article to get through. By November, global opposition was mounting against Israel's military campaign, which had already killed thousands of children, women, and elderly. I hate when people say this. They say like innocent men dying in wars is apparently it's just fine. It makes it seem like it's just fine, Well, listen, just kill all the innocent men, but the women and children, you can't do that. On their social media feed, which the Times said it was reviewing. So yeah, there was something about this, about the Times reviewing in something written about New York Times reviewing reporter who liked Gaza slaughterhouse tweet. So apparently there was a journalist, one of the journalists who made that article that we just read, liked a tweet about how Israel should turn Gaza into a slaughterhouse. Peculiar behavior. Schwartz liked the tweet saying that Israel needs to turn the strip into a slaughterhouse. Yeah, there you go. Violate any norm on the way to victory, the post said. Those in front of us are human animals who do not hesitate to violate minimal rules. The New York Times, however, does not have rules and norms. Schwartz had no prior reporting experience. Her reporting partner, Gettleman, explained to her the basics. Schwartz said in a podcast interview on the January 3rd, produced by Israel's Channel 12 and conducted in Hebrew. Gettleman, she said, was concerned that they get at least two sources for every detail we put in the article, cross-checking information. Do we have forensic evidence? Do we have visual evidence? Apart from telling our reader this happened, what can you say? Can we tell what happened to whom? Schwartz said that she initially was reluctant to take the assignment because she did not want to look at the visual images of potential crimes committed, but because she did not want to look at the potential crimes committed, and because she lacked the expertise to conduct an investigation. Victims of violence are women. Victims of violence are women and have experienced something, and then to come and sit in front of a woman. Who am I, anyways? She said, I have no qualifications. You're a journalist. I guess you were supposed to be. Bro said, I have no qualifications. Is that true? Do they have a, here this is. This is it, right? Wait, let me. Yeah, here it is. I mean, I can't speak Hebrew, so I don't I can't listen to this shit. So I can't verify everything, but I would imagine it's here. By how much traction this article is getting, I would imagine that this has been cross-checked already. She said, I have no qualifications. Okay. Nonetheless, she began working with Gettleman on the story. She explained in the podcast interview, Gettleman, a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, is an international correspondent, and when he is sent to the bureau, he works with news assistants and freelancers on stories. In this case, several newsroom sources familiar with the process said Schwartz and Stella did the vast majority of the ground reporting while Gutterman focused on framing and writing. The resulting report published in late December was headlined Screams Without Words, how Hamas weaponized violence against women on October 7th. It was a bombshell and galvanized the Israeli war effort in a time when even some of Israel's allies were expressing concern over the large-scale death toll in Gaza. Inside the newsroom, the article was met with praise from the editorial leaders, but skepticism from the Times journalists. The paper's flagship podcast, The Daily, attempted to turn the article into an episode, but didn't manage to get through a fact check, as the Intercept previously reported. Wait. The New York Times puts daily episode on ice amid internal firestorm over Hamas article. Really? They put it on ice? Wait a second, we gotta check this one out. Times pulled a high-profile episode of its podcast, The Daily, about violence committed by Hamas against women amid the furious internal debate about the strength of the paper's original reporting on the subject. The Times newsroom sources told The Intercept the episode had been scheduled for January 9th and based on a prominent article led by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Jeffrey Gettleman. Times report initially heralded an email sent to the newsroom conveying praise from the executive editor who described the story as an example of the best kind of enterprise reporting the paper is capable of. Somebody said that to me is the best reporting that they're capable of. In the past few weeks and years, we draw close, and many of us were on holiday. We published Signature, Enterprise, and Israel-Hamas War from different teams in the newsroom. Gettleman and Schwartz spent several weeks and conducted 150 interviews on how Hamas weaponized violence. The topic is highly politicized issue and delicate to report on, and Joe noted how the team included photographs, did it in a sensitive and detailed way, but the message came roughly at the same time. Another staff missive urging Times employees not to criticize each other on the company's internal Slack. Many reporters and editors understood that the directive to be a reference to intense internal debate unfolding over the story, a rolling fight that is revved on a nearly daily basis over the tenor of the Times coverage of the war. The Times spokesman Charlie Stadlander said assumptions were inaccurate and that the email was a re-release of the company-wide policy, right? As criticism of a Gettleman story, both internally and externally, producers at The Daily shelved the original script and paused the episode. According to newsroom sources familiar with the process, a new script was drafted, one that offered major caveats, allowed for uncertainty, and asked open-ended questions that were absent from the original article, which presented the findings as definitive evidence of violence. Yeah, that sounds like something they do. Yeah, it sounds like something they do. From some of the articles, especially from some of the articles, how they were written and some of the headlines coming out of the New York Times. I don't know, man. You've heard of first person, you've heard of third person. Get ready for the New York Times has invented a new fourth person passive voice perspective to describe some of the stuff that some of the crimes Israel is committing in Gaza. It's very interesting. Wait, isn't chat the fourth person? Fourth person perspective, emergence of the collective subjective. Fritos, Cheetos, Doritos. Reporters found the paper of record found themselves in a jam. Run a version that hews closely to the previously published story and risking republishing serious mistakes, or published a heavily toned down version, raising questions about whether the paper still stands by the original reporting. Meanwhile, sources at the time says Gettleman has been assigned a follow-up to gather evidence supporting the original reporting. On January 29th, he and his co-reporters published a follow-up story addressing questions raised by social media critics about the time. So really? Wow. Well, golly gee, I had no clue about this. Okay, so basically, on the inside, they were like, we don't know about the veracity of this type of reporting. There seems to be no self-awareness at the top, said one frustrated Time editorial staffer. Told the story deserved more fact-checking and much more reporting. Yeah, it seemed like this happened isn't that crazy, right? More than like finding out things specifically what happened. It seemed like every single time there was a time for where they could like pull actual information to give to the reader that they found themselves independently. It just didn't exist, right? It just did not exist. Just nothing really existed. Some of the Times paper is facing serious external scrutiny for this coverage of the Israel-Gaza war since October. Has shown deference for Israeli defense forces while diminishing the scale of the depths of discretion and Intercept analysis. Okay, that's a little bit of just your opinion. It's your opinion, bro. Even though I agree, I don't want to. That is just a little bit of their opinion, bro. United Nations teams arrived in Israel to examine reports of violence. Israeli officials said Hamas brutalized women. We love women, so we hate that. The UN visit comes after multiple news organizations reported allegations. Actually, this is the first time that they said the word did they use the word allegations in this story at all? Wait, let me see. And keep this off screen just in case. They didn't use the word allegation in this. Wait, they didn't use the word allegation in this at all. Wait a second. Look at this. Allegation, no matches. Even though everything is technically hearsay, because they weren't able to find any direct evidence. What the hell? That actually kind of blows my mind. Don't teach your dogs to read, it's too powerful. Maybe you do got to keep them a little dumb. All right then. Oh, they use the word allegations here. The UN team aims to give a voice to survivors. Israeli government has welcomed the team. It has forced to cooperate. It has refused to cooperate with another UN body investigating October 7th atrocities, accusing it of anti-Israel bias. Hamas, which they consider a terrorist group, described the accusations as wartime propaganda meant to justify very real crimes. Hamas, which is categorized as a terrorist organization, denies the Palestinian fighters had abused women. It has described the accusations as wartime propaganda meant to justify the real war crimes and mass murder and ethnic cleansing being carried out by Israel. Hamas said in a statement that, yo, dog, we didn't do this. Okay, thank you, Hamas. Very cool. Hamas has said its fighters, as Muslims, we are bound by honor to protect all women's, except for the ones that you killed, because they definitely killed women, 100%. Times report has been challenged on social media by critics who question the reliability of the witnesses cited in the article. Some say it failed to prove that Hamas planned. That is true, is that the main crux of the article is that Hamas specifically planned to commit crimes against women as a part of their war strategy against Israel. And that had no basis in the article whatsoever. Like, no matter what you think about the article, that actually had no basis whatsoever. I don't even think they tried to prove that. It was just, we hear allegations that it happened. But that's literally it. That's actually really bad reporting, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now, I didn't even think about that. But now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, wow. Yeah, that actually makes no sense. Okay. or that any of the assailants were members of, oh yeah, wait, you didn't. They weren't able to prove that anybody who actually harmed them, if they weren't able to prove if they were harmed. They weren't able to prove Hamas harmed them, and they weren't able to prove if Hamas was using harming women specifically as a tool against Israel. So like nothing was proven in the article. They just were able to relay like witness allegations against Hamas, and that's like it. That's just okay. We weren't able to prove any of that. Were women harmed? It seems so. Were they assaulted? It seems very possible. But this is just crazy. Interesting stuff. One of the assailants were members of the group, knowing that other militants and ordinary residents of Gaza entered Israel that day too. The Times cited 4 people who described seeing assaults happen while hiding during the Hamas-led attack. One 26-year-old accountant who had been identified only by her first name. This is the person that they corrected the age of. Said they saw crimes. Some critics said their comments in the police video. Some critics have said her comments in the police video clip were inconsistent with what she told the Times. Oh, they didn't even look into that? The Times found Sapir and spoke to her several times before the publication of the article, including 2 hours outside a cafe. In these interviews, she recounted the ordeal and began at the rave, where more than 360 people lost their lives. She was shot in the back during the attack. It still feels faint. We read this already. Israeli police have declined to release. She also told the Times she saw assailants carrying the heads of 3 women. You didn't write that in the article. Sister saw in the back. He said, well, feeling faint at times and hiding under the branches of a tree, she saw groups of armed men, mainly dressed in military fatigues, assault women. She also told the Times she saw the assailants carrying the heads of 3 women. Like that just popped up out of nowhere. That wasn't written in the original article. Okay. Israel police have declined to release more of what Sapir told them, saying that's going into greater detail could hinder their investigation. How? But the police let the Times view portions of another video in which Sapir told investigators that she was told investigators much of what she told the Times, despite multiple describing the accounts. Police also said they found Sapir's bag where she'd been holding women's clothing. Bag where she said she had been hiding, and women's clothing near. She said the assaults happened, and 3 severed heads were found further away near bodies. The assailants in military fatigues, Israeli officials said, without providing more detail. In a separate interview, is hiding next to Sapir. The Times, he barely lifted his head, but he saw a woman, he said, being harmed, and some wearing military fatigues. Reached again last week, he repeated the account. That's why Israeli police released only parts of Sapir's testimony. The mayor, police chief, superintendent, and spokesperson said, we need to show the world the violence. On top of the other hand, we needed to protect the investigation. The other witnesses who had been scrutinized by Raz Cohen, a security consultant, described seeing the assaults himself. Critics have questioned his credibility because he did not say he had witnessed such attacks in his first interviews with reporters on the 9th. Mr. Cohen started talking about when this account assaults the next day. He spoke to the Times in November. So he said he saw 5 men kill a woman. Critics have pointed out that he went further in other interviews than he did with the Times to describe the acts. A friend who was hiding with him until the Times he saw a group kill a woman, which last week he repeated the account. Cohen described the terror scene and people being massacred around him. He feared for his life. Asked this month why he did not mention the assault claims first, Mr. Cohen cited the stress of the experience and said that a text message that had not that he had not realized then. Wait, he said that it was a stressful experience, and he said in a text message that he had not realized then that he was one of the few surviving witnesses. He declined to be interviewed again, saying he was working to recover from the trauma that he had suffered. Okay. All right, then. Sure. Penny lawyers specializing in international law, including crimes against women, said the site said slight variation in eyewitness testimonies does not necessarily invalidate the experience. It's natural after a traumatic event for your testimony to change a little bit. Tom Zuckel described visual evidence in interviews and witnesses and soldiers and volunteers and volunteer medics who together said there's more than 30 bodies of women who they said have been abused. Israeli police had acknowledged that during the shock that they did not conduct any autopsies. Okay. Very interesting. Last from the first 6 weeks of the war, the New York Times, alongside major publications, consistently delegitimized the Palestinian deaths and cultivated a gross imbalance in coverage of pro-Israeli sources and voices. The paper's coverage of South Africa's coverage of the genocide at the international charges of genocide at the International Court of Justice played down the severity of the case at the onset and downplayed Israel's defeat on Friday. Just last week, the Times ran a headline touting decline in deaths in Gaza, even as Israel continues to kill Palestinians in shocking numbers on a daily basis. So what is this about? What is this one about? Decline in deaths. Links to a tweet. I don't know about this flavor of reporting. What is this? Wait, what is this reporting? I don't like this reporting either. What's going on here? So I clicked on the thing that said that they were running a headline about declines in death in Gaza, and you know what this links to? It links to a tweet with the headline and not the actual article. Did they change the headline or something? Quick work, Intercept. Wait, what is this? I've actually never seen this before. Okay, it is indeed a real article. Okay, it is a real article, but why'd they link to a tweet and not the actual article? Like, yeah, like here it is. Here's the article. Decline in deaths in Gaza. The daily death toll in Gaza has fallen in half over the past month, reflecting a change in the war strategy. Like 100 less. So what? Like I think like 150 people are dying a day. So, okay. So what used to be like 200, 300? It's just peculiar way to do that. Okay, but this isn't the full. That wasn't from the full expose. That was a completely different article. So let's get back here to the full article. So yeah, the daily the New York Times killed the episode due to fact-checking failures. Yeah, they're just starving to death instead. Yeah, I've heard starvation deaths have started to tick up, but that was in January. That was a month ago, just so you know. The article was written a month ago. The fear among Times staffers who have been critical of the paper's Gaza coverage is that Schwartz will become a scapegoat for what is a much deeper failure. She may harbor animosity towards Palestinians, lack the experience to investigate journalism, and feel conflicting pressure between being a supporter of Israel's war effort and a Times reporter. But Schultz did not commission herself and Stella to be the most consequential. Did not commission herself and Stella to report one of the most consequential stories of the war. Senior leadership at the New York Times did. I will say it's one of the most consequential, right? Because I think we talked about this before, how you need to get these crimes straightened, because people are going to use these types of crimes as evidence for how these types of people are like non-human creatures, like inhuman animals that must be dealt away with. They just have to be slaughtered, right? That's what people are going to use stories like this for, and that's why it's important to get these stories right. And if you get them wrong, it can have dire consequences for people. And so that's one of the big issues I have with this type of reporting. Yeah, Netanyahu, Herzog, they say this type of stuff. The defense, the defense ministry. Schwartz said as much in an interview with the Israeli Army radio on December 31st. The New York Times said, let's do an investigation into violence. Let's do an investigation into violence. It was more of a case of them having to convince me, she said. Her host cut her off. It was a proposal of the New York Times, the entire thing. Unequivocally, she said. Unequivocally. Obviously, of course, she said. The paper stood behind us 200% and gave us the time, the investment, and the resource to go in depth with this investigation as much as needed. Shortly after the war broke out, some editors and reporters complained that the Times standards barred them from referring to Hamas as terrorists. The rationale from the Standards Department, run for 14 years by Philip Colbert, had long been that Hamas was the de facto administration of a specific territory rather than a stateless terror group. Deliberately killing civilians went their argument, but not enough to label them. Deliberately killing civilians went their argument. Was not enough to label them as a terrorist group, and the label could apply quite broadly. And so that's actually, so if that was the case, then that's something that they violated here, because they specifically called Hamas terrorists multiple times. They actually called them terrorists 7 times in the article. Hamas terrorists, as the terrorists, Hamas terrorists, like multiple times. So if that's true, then they just violated their own, they allowed this group to violate their own standards in that article. Colbert, after October 7th, defended the policy in the face of pressure, the newsroom said, but he lost. On October 19th, an email went out on behalf of the executive editor, Joe Kahn, saying that Colbert had asked to step back from his position. After 14 years of the embodiment of time standards, Corbett, has told us that he'd like to step back a bit and let someone else take the lead in the role in this critical effort. Times leadership explained. 3 newsroom sources said the move was tied to pressure that he was under to soften coverage in Israel's favor. One of the social media posts that Schwartz liked, triggering the Times review, made the case that for Israeli propaganda purposes, Hamas should be likened at all times to the Islamic State. Nice. Yeah, she shouldn't be able to lead an article like this. That shouldn't be her job. That's kind of crazy to me how she was liking. She's on Twitter liking posts. Remember that guy on Twitter? Like the second the Hamas attack happened, he was like, we need to commit genocide. I love genocide and we need to kill everybody in Gaza. And just period. You think she liked that post? It's very possible that she was like, hell yeah, brother. She was like, hell yeah, my brother. That's actually really scary that the New York Times has people like that making articles like this that are unequivocally like pro-Israel, right? That's actively journalistic malpractice. Incredibly poor article writing. Times leadership explained. 3 newsroom sources said that the move was tied to pressure that they were under to soften coverage in Israel's favor. One of the social media posts that Schwartz liked, triggering the Times to review, made the case that for Israel propaganda purposes, Hamas should always be likened to ISIS. A Times spokesperson told The Intercept, your understanding about Phil Corbett is flatly untrue. In a statement received after publication, Phil had asked to change roles before Joe Kahn even became the executive director in 2022, and it had absolutely nothing to do with a dispute over coverage. Since the revelations regarding Schwartz's recent social media activity, her byline has not appeared in the paper, and she has not attended editorial meetings. The paper said that the review on her social media likes is ongoing. Those likes are unacceptable violations of our company policies, said a New York Times spokesperson. Oh no, dude. They're like, I'm sorry, we have a genocidal freak writing articles about, I'm sorry, we have an Islamophobic genocidal freak writing articles that make Arabs look bad. on our payroll. Okay. That's kind of. Oh no, she was caught being genocidal on Maine. Yeah, she forgot to start liking those tweets on her alt. Oops. The bigger scandal may be the reporting itself, the process that allowed it into print, and the life-altering impact that the reporting had for thousands of Palestinians whose deaths were justified by the alleged systematic abuse against women by Hamas. The paper claimed it had exposed. Another frustrated Times reporter, who also worked as an editor there, said a lot of focus will understandably, rightfully be directed at Schwartz, but this is most clearly poor editorial decision making that undermines all that great work being tirelessly done across the paper, both related and completely unrelated to the war, that manages to challenge our readers and meet our standards. Hamas is not ISIS. That is true. That is true. I mean, Israel is now rivaling ISIS when it comes to how many religious sites it has personally destroyed. So that part is curious. The Channel 12 podcast interview with Schultz, which the Intercept translated from Hebrew, opens the window into a reporting process on the controversial story and suggests that the New York Times mission was to bolster a predetermined narrative. Okay, that's a big claim. That's a big claim, bucko. So let's see if you can back that one up. It's a big claim. Wait, did she really think that she could talk about this type of stuff in Hebrew and then nobody would notice? She's like, they'll never understand me yapping in Hebrew. I can tell you all this stuff without them even noticing, dog. You don't even get it. Journalistic practices ain't nothing to me, man. In response to the Intercept's questions about Schwartz's podcast interview, a spokesperson for the Times walked back the blockbuster article's framing that evidence shows Hamas weaponized abuse against women to a softer claim that there may have been systematic abuse. Oh, there may have been. Oh no, dude. The Times international editor Phil Pan said in a statement that he stands by the work. Ms. Schwartz was part of a rigorous reporting team and editing process, he said. She made valuable contributions and we saw no evidence of bias in her work. We remain confident that the accuracy of our reporting, and stand by the team's investigation. But as we have said, her likes are offensive and opinionated social media posts predating to her work with us are unacceptable. After the story was published, Schwartz, who did not respond to a request for comment, tweeted to thank the Times for standing behind the important stories we have published. She added, the recent attack against me will not deter me from continuing my work. Addressing her social media activity, Schwartz said, I understand why people who do not know me were offended by the inadvertent like. I didn't mean to like it. I pressed on October 7th and I apologize for that. At least 3 of her likes have been subject to public scrutiny. Oh no, she just accidentally keeps pressing the like button all the time, I guess, on specifically posts about killing all Palestinians. It's just something just takes over in her. She just has to accidentally click the like button when somebody makes a post about killing Palestinians. It's just, I don't know. It's just something that overwhelms her.
This is very real.
She's compelled. She's compelled by the ghost of genocide past. I personally just wouldn't click like. I mean, I have a lot of people who are very anti-Israel on my timeline, but I tell you, I don't think I've clicked a single like on a post saying something along the lines of genociding Israelis. Okay, I don't think I've done that once. Not once. I don't know how she can't keep herself from doing it. It's quite easy not to like posts encouraging genocide. Yeah, it's really easy to just not do that. You could just simply not. Anyways, in the podcast interview, Schwartz details her extensive efforts to get confirmation from Israeli hospitals assault centers, trauma recovery facilities, and assault hotlines in assault hotlines in Israel, as well as her inability to get a single confirmation from any of them. She told there had been no complaints. There had been no complaints of assault. The Times spokesperson acknowledged that the Intercept brought the Channel 12 podcast episode to the paper's attention. This, however, was just the first step. This, however, was just the first step in her research. She then describes the unfolding evidence of testimonies, and eventual evidence that there may have been systemic abuse, the spokesperson asserted. She details her research steps and emphasizes the Times' strict standards to corroborate evidence and meetings with reporters and editors to discuss probing questions and think critically about the story. The question has never been whether the individual acts of assault, individual acts of abuse may have occurred on the 7th. Abuse is not uncommon in war, and there are several hundred civilians who poured into Israel from Gaza that day in a second wave, contributing to and participating in mayhem and violence. The central issue is whether the New York Times presented solid evidence that supports the claim that there were newly reported details establishing that the attack against women were not isolated incidents, but events a part of a broader pattern of gender-based violence. Yeah, this seems like that's something that they just cannot prove. A claim stated in the headline that Hamas deliberately deployed this abuse as a weapon of war. How Hamas weaponized violence on October 7th. That is true. It is like literally right there. It is literally right there. The thing that they had no possibility of proving and just did not prove at all. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Schwartz began her work on the violence of October 7th, where one would expect, by calling around and designating room 4 facilities and 11 Israeli hospitals to examine the threat potential of abuse victims. First thing, I called them and I told them, no complaint of. I called them and they told me no complaint of abuse was received. She recalled in the podcast interview, I had a lot of interviews which didn't lead anywhere. Like, I would go to all kinds of psychiatric hospitals, sit in front of the staff, all of them fully committed to the mission, and no one had met a victim of abuse. What do you mean fully committed to the mission? What mission? Fully committed to the mission. What does she mean by that? First up was to call the manager of the abuse hotline. I'm not trying to get banned. Okay, of the abuse hotline in Israel South, which provided which proved equally fruitless. The manager told her that they had no reports of abuse. She described the calls as a crazy in-depth conversation where she pressed for specific cases. Did you call anyone? Did you hear anything? She recalled asking, how could it be that you didn't? As Schwartz began her own effort to find evidence of abuse, the first specific allegations began to emerge. A person identified in anonymous media interviews was a paramedic from the Israeli Force Medical Unit 669, claimed he had evidence of 2 teens being abused in their bedroom. The man made other outrageous claims. This is just your opinion to say they're outrageous. However, that called his report into question. He claimed another rescuer pulled out of the garbage a baby who had been stabbed multiple times. He also said that he had seen Arabic sentences that were written on the entrances of the houses with blood of the people that were living in these houses. No such messages exist, and the story of the baby in the trash has been debunked. The bigger problem was that there were no girls in the kibbutz to fit the source's description. In future interviews, he changed the location of the kibbutz Be'eri. He changed the location to kibbutz Be'eri, but no victims killed there matched the description either, as MetaWise reported. Oh no. Why are they always formatted like shit? I don't know, but there's a reason why I don't come here that often. But I mean, that's really, listen, you got to be really careful with this type of stuff. People said that some of these, oh, you know what? In that follow-up article that they made, they never talked about this guy who talked about the two teens that he found that were abused. They never followed up with that story. They talked about other stories that people said that there were crimes that were committed, or like there were inconsistencies in their stories, but not this one. This one they completely left. Yeah, stuff calling camera is bad enough. Stop making stuff up. Yeah, you don't have to make stuff up. Like, you don't have to. You really don't. You walk out, you kill a bunch of people. You don't have to make up other stuff to be able to get people to understand that this stuff's wrong, right? Wow. After seeing these interviews, Schwartz started calling people at kibbutz Be'eri and other kibbutzim that were targeted in October 7th in an effort to track down the story. Nothing. There was nothing, she said. No one saw or heard anything. She then reached a Unit 669 paramedic who relayed to Schwartz the same story that he told other news outlets, which she said convinced her there was a systematic nature to the violence. I said, okay, so it happened. One person saw it happen in Be'eri, so it can't be just one person because it's two girls, it's sisters. It's in the room. Something about it is systemic. How? It's one house. Something about it feels to me that it's not random. Schultz concluded in the podcast. She can't work here. Schwartz said she began a series of extensive conversations with Israeli officials from Zaka, a private ultra-Orthodox rescue organization that had been documented to have mishandled evidence in the spread of false stories. That has been documented to have mishandled evidence and spread multiple false stories about events in October 7th, including debunked allegations of Hamas operative beheading. Oh, this is the baby beheading story, people. And cutting babies out of women. It's these guys? Okay. It's those guys who are just making up story. Okay, I see. That guy. These are the guys who Biden was quoting early in the in the war. Its workers are not trained forensic scientists or crime scene experts. We go into a house, we use our wait. No, this isn't real. Is this a real quote? This can't be a real quote. When we go into a house, we use our imagination. Joe Biden asked these guys if they know about crimes that happened against Israelis, and this guy actually goes, "It was revealed to me in a dream." It was revealed to me in a dream. No, this can't be the case. This can't be the case. This can't be true. Yeah, they're drunk. They're drinking on the job, man. We use our imagination, said Yossi Landau, a senior Zaka official, describing the group's work on the October 7th attack sites. The bodies were telling us what happened. That's what happened. Landau was featured in the Times report, though no mention of his well-documented track record of disseminating sensational stories of atrocities that were later proven false. Schwartz said then in her initial interviews, Zaka members did not make any specific allegations of abuse, but described the general condition of the bodies that they saw. They told me, yes, we saw naked women, or yes, we saw them without underwear, both naked without underwear, and and naked without underwear, and zip tied and tied with zip ties, and some not zip ties, sometimes rope or a string of a hoodie. Okay, but like Israel is doing that right now. Israel's like gathering people up and stripping them as well. Schwartz continued to look for evidence at various sites of the attack with no witnesses corroborating the stories of abuse. And I searched a lot in the kibbutzim, apart from the testimony of the Israeli military paramedic, and accidentally here and there, Zaka people, the stories like didn't emerge from there. So I searched a lot of kibbutzim, and apart from this testimony of the Israeli military paramedic, and additionally, here and there, Zaka people, the stories like didn't emerge from there. What is happening? As she continued to work the phones with rescue officials, Schwartz then saw interviews that international news channels began airing with Shari Mendez, an American architect who serves in the Rabbisinal unit of the Israeli Defense Forces. Are these the mages of the Israeli Defense Force? What does that mean? Rabbisinal unit of the Israeli Defense. Is this the mage class of the IDF? Is this like the clerics? Rabbisinal unit. Okay. Yeah, I knew their military was advanced, but that's crazy. Like rabbi. Yeah, I know that part, but like, what was a rabbi doing on the battlefield? Do they like bless the bullets before they shoot? They're chaplains. Okay. Yeah, kosher bullets. Same thing as a chaplain, probably. Okay, sure. They summon gold. Yeah, they're the summoners. Mendez, who was deployed to a morgue to prepare bodies for burial after the October 7th attack, claimed to have seen voluminous evidence of abuse. We saw evidence of abuse, Mendez stated in one interview. Pelvises were broken. You can... this is where this came from. I saw somebody not too long ago make this like really, like they were making like YouTube videos and posts not too long ago saying that Hamas abused women so bad that their pelvises broke. Is this where this came from? Because I don't believe that happens. I don't even believe that's possible. It's actually one of the most insane things that I've ever heard. One of the most sensational stories to come out of this so far that I've seen. Like, I actually believe the 40 beheaded baby stories before this one. Like, it's a bone. What do you mean? And this was also among grandmothers down to small children. This is not just something that we saw on the internet. We saw the bodies with our own eyes. Mendez had been a ubiquitous figure in the Israeli government and major media narratives on the abuse perpetrated on October 7th, despite the fact that she had no medical forensic credentials to legally determine assault. She also spoke about other violence on October 7th, telling the Daily Mail in October a baby was cut out of the mother, beheaded, and then the mother beheaded. No pregnant woman died that day, according to the official Israeli list of those killed in the attacks. And the independent research collective on October 7th said Mendez's story was false. How do you lie about something that provably false? And they interviewed this person because remember, Mendez was one of these people that were interviewed in this story. But let me see. Boop. Yeah, actually, I highlighted one thing that she said. Yeah, here she is. Sharon Mendez, an architect called up to prepare the bodies, said the female soldiers were brutalized. There was a lot of blood in the pelvic area, they said. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. We use our imagination. Wait, I see it. Remember back when Rocksteady used to make good games? It's that detective tool that Batman has that does the replay of a crime scene so he can see exactly what happened and how stuff got there. But instead, they just use their imagination. because they I don't know, they're able to summon the the hologram to be able to see exactly what happened. Hacker man's. We saw evidence of abuse, Mendez stated in one interview. Yeah, the pelvis broken thing. After Schwartz saw interviews with Mendez, she was further convinced that the systemic assault thing was true. I'm like, wow, what is this? She recalled, and it feels to me like it's starting to approach a plurality, even if you don't know which numbers to put up just yet. Okay. At the same time, Schwartz said she felt conflicted at times, wondering if she was becoming convinced of the truth of the overreaching story precisely because she was looking for evidence to support the claim. I kept wondering all the time whether if I just hear about assault and see assault, and I'm thinking whether it's just because I'm leading towards that, she said. Oh, she's wondering if her bias against wanting to find it is playing into her reporting. She pushed those doubts aside. By the time Schwartz interviewed Mendez, the IDF reservist story had ricocheted around the world and become concisely debunked. No baby was cut out or beheaded. Schwartz and the New York Times would go on to rely on Mendez's testimony as well as those of other witnesses whose track records making unreliable claims and lacking forensic credentials. No mention was made of questions about Mendez's credibility. Maybe I'm biased. Nah. I've never even seen. I don't even know what bias is, man. How Schwartz landed such an extraordinary position at a crucial moment in the war is not entirely clear. Prior to joining the Times as a stringer last fall, Sella was a freelance journalist covering stories and issues ranging from food photography to culture and peace efforts, economy, and the occupation. According to her LinkedIn profile, Sella's first collaboration with Gettleman, published on October 14th, was to look at the trauma experienced by students at a university in southern Israel. For Schwartz, her first byline landed on November 14th. Here, one moment. Okay. Israeli police officials shared more evidence on Tuesday of atrocities committed during October 7th, Hamas-led attacks, saying that they had collected testimonies from more than 1,000 witnesses and survivors about abuse. And about abuse, Schwartz reported. The story went on to quote Israel's public chief, Kobi Shabtai. Shabati? It's probably Shabtai. Something along those lines. Shabtai. Explaining a litany of evidence of gruesome abuses on October 7th. This is the most extensive investigation in this the state of Israel has ever known, Shabtai said in the Schwartz article, promising ample evidence would be soon provided. When the Times later produced its definitive Screams Without Words investigation, however, Schwartz and her partners reported that contrary to Shabtai's claim, forensic evidence of violence was non-existent. Without acknowledging the past statements by Shabtai and the Times, the paper reported that quick funerals in according with Jewish tradition meant evidence was not preserved. Experts told the Times that abuse and wars often leads to limited forensic evidence. On the podcast, Schwartz said her next steps was to go to a new holistic therapy facility established to address the trauma of October 7th victims, particularly those who endured the carnage of the Nova Music Festival. Opened a week after the attacks, the facility began welcoming hundreds of survivors where they could seek counseling, do yoga, and receive alternative medicine, as well as acupuncture, sound healing, and reflexology treatments. I don't even know what the hell that is. They put them in the goddamn back to tank, man. They called it Merav Mark Healing Space. Okay. In multiple visits to Healing Space, Schwartz again said the podcast said again to the podcast in the podcast interview that she found no direct evidence of assault after expressing frustration with the therapists and counselors at the facility, saying that they engage in a conspiracy of silence, protecting clients personal personal medical experience. Is that what you're saying? Like, they don't have HIPAA, but not committing a HIPAA violation. Is that what you're saying? A conspiracy of silence? That's crazy. Can you imagine saying the nurses helping people who were almost killed are engaging in a conspiracy of silence and not tell you their medical histories? Everyone, even those who heard the kinds of things from people, they felt very committed to their patients, or even to people who assisted their patients not to reveal things. In the end, Schwartz came away with only innuendo and general statements. The therapist, in the end, Schwartz came away with only innuendo and general statements from the therapist about how people process trauma, including violence, right? She said potential victims might be ashamed to speak out, experiencing survivor's guilt, and still in shock. Perhaps also because Israeli society is very conservative, there is an inclination to keep silent about the true nature of this type of abuse. Schwartz speculated, right? On top of this, there's probably the added dimension of the religious national aspect that is done by terrorists, by some from Hamas, she added. And there were lots and lots of layers that made it so they didn't even speak. According to the published Times article, 2 therapists said they were working with women who were assaulted at the rave, and there were no condition to talk to invest. So in her talk about it afterwards, she was like, oh yeah, none of the therapists would ever talk to me about this stuff. And then in her article, she was like, we were working with multiple victims. I was like, that's actually a pretty good point, but it seems like that might not be true. She might have simply just lied. That's very possible. That's actually so scary. How you could just lie about, possibly. You don't know if it's 100% true yet. But wow, if that's true, wow. Schwartz said that she focused on the kibbutzim because she had initially determined it was unlikely abuses had occurred at the Nova. It was unlikely abuses had occurred at the Nova Festival. I was very skeptical that it had happened in the area of the party because everyone I spoke to among the survivors told me about the chase, a race, like about moving from place to place. She recalled how they would have had no time to mess with a woman. Like, it was impossible. Either you hide or you die, and it's public. The Nova. It's such an open space. Schwartz watched interviews given to international media outlets by Raz Cohen, who attended the Nova Festival. So she's making claims like, oh yeah, I don't even think it's possible. People just get onto the internet and lie. It's not even that people get onto the New York Times and lie, possibly. Schwartz watched interviews given to international media outlets by Raz Cohen, who attended the Nova Festival. A veteran of the Israeli Special Forces, Cohen did multiple interviews about abuse he claimed he had witnessed. A few days after the attack, he told PBS NewsHour that he had witnessed multiple abuses. The terrorists, people from Gaza, they assaulted the girls, and after they had assaulted them, they killed them, murdered them with knives, or the opposite, killed and then assaulted. They did that. He said, an appearance on CNN on January 4th, he described seeing abuses and said the assailants were five civilians from Gaza, normal guys, not soldiers, not Hamas militants. It was It was regular people from Gaza with normal clothes. Cohen, in Cohen's interview with Schwartz for the Times, he said he saw 5 men wearing civilian clothes, all carrying knives and a hammer, harming women. They all gather around, Cohen said. Yeah, and they like harmed women. But this has nothing to do with like Hamas. They're just right. They're like, oh, we found claims of Hamas doing this stuff, but like normal people from Gaza are not Hamas. It was an interview gave to the Times. It was an interview that he gave to the Times. Its title screams without words how Hamas weaponized violence on October 7th. That Cohen had described alleged assailants as not being members of Hamas, as Hamas underlines the headline, but it remains unchanged. The Times did not address Cohen's earlier claims that they had witnessed multiple assaults. Schwartz said in a podcast interview that since the Times insisted on at least 2 sources, that he said Cohen, the Times insisted on at least 2 sources. She said Cohen. She asked Cohen to give her the contact information of people he was hiding with in the bush so she could corroborate the story of the assault. She recalled, Raz hides in the next bush, lies to him, his friend Shoam. They get to the bush. There are 2 people on the other side looking in the direction. Everyone else is looking in a different direction. Okay. Despite saying in the podcast that only Cohen had witnessed the event and the others were looking in a different direction. In the Times, wait. Raz hides in the bush. Next to him lies his friend Shoam. They get to the bush. There are 2 people on the other side looking in the other direction. And another 5th person. 5 people in the same bush. Only Raz sees all the things he sees. Everyone else is looking in a different direction. Despite saying on the podcast, only Cohen witnesses the event, and the others were looking in different directions. In the Times story, Shoam is presented as, Shoam Gutea is presented as corroborating the witnesses, the witness to the abuse. That's actually true. I remember that. I was like, oh, there's 2 people who looked at this one. That's actually pretty serious. Apparently, that's a lie. He said he saw at least 4 men step out of the van and attack the woman, right? Guterres did not mention witnessing an assault in the interview, but he in the interview he did with NBC News on October 8th, a day after the attack, but he did describe seeing women who were killed. We saw terrorists killing people, burning cars, shouting everywhere. If you say something, if you make a noise, you'll be murdered. Guterres subsequently deployed into Gaza with the IDF and has posted many videos on TikTok of himself rummaging through Palestinian homes. Cohen and Guterres did not respond to requests for comment. Oh, he's one of the IDF TikTokers now, like looting Palestinian homes. Okay. The independent site on October 7th fact check Mondowise and journalist Ali. Oh no. Abu Nima. Okay. How about that? Yeah, ain't that about a bitch? Ali Abu Nima of Electronic Intifada and Max Blumenthal of the Gray Zone have I don't know about these sources. Have flagged numerous inconsistencies and contradictions in the stories told at the Times report, including the account of Cohen, who had initially said that he had chosen not to look, but he could hear them laughing consistently. So he specifically did not see anything. So I don't know about the sources, but if they have like video of the quote and everything, it's him just saying, I didn't see anything. I just heard. That's not a corroboration of what the other guy saw. Under pressure internally to defend the veracity of the story, the Times reassigned Gettleman, Schwartz, and Sella to effectively re-report the story, resulting in an article published on the 29th. Cohen declined to speak to them. They reported, asked this month why he had not mentioned the assault at first, he cited the stress of the experience and sent a text message that he realized then that he was one of the only surviving witnesses. Wait, but like he had multiple interviews beforehand. Attackers into the woods near the Nova Festival. She was also moved, she said, by a clip of an interview where she watched in November at a press conference hosted by the Israeli officials, the one that became the focus of her first Times article. The accountant named Sapir described an lurid scene of assaults and other various evil crimes. The Times report stated they interviewed Sapir for 2 hours at a cafe in South Israel, and she described witnessing multiple abuses, including incident where the attacker, does a very terrible crime. At the press conference in November, Israeli authorities said that they were collecting and examining forensic evidence that would confirm Sapir's specifically detailed accounts. Police said they're still gathering evidence and DNA from victims, and in addition to eyewitnesses to build the strongest case possible. So the correspondent who covered the press event, such a scene would produce significant amounts of physical evidence, yet Israeli officials have to date been unable to provide it. I have circumstantial evidence, but at the end, my duty is to find supporting evidence for her story and discover the victims' identities, said the superintendent Ali Edri, an Israeli official leading the investigation into abuses on October 7th, a week after the Times report went online. At this stage, I have no specific bodies. Months afterwards, Hecka Gray Zone. The Channel 12 podcast. This is such incriminating evidence that she's popping off with. She decided to go speak to talk like that and think that she could get away with it. Is that true? Really? I've never seen this level of self-snitching before in my life. All right, we're getting close to the end though. Many of them were buried quickly. I know. In the Channel 12 podcast, Schwartz is asked if firsthand testimonies of women who survived assault on October 7th exist. I can't really speak about this, but the vast majority of women who have been abused on October 7th were shot immediately after and were otherwise... and that's where the big numbers are. The majority of bodies, some women managed to escape and survive, she added. I do not know that there is a very significant element of dissociation when it comes to the assault. So a lot of times they don't remember. They don't remember everything. They remember fragments and events, and they can't always describe how they ended up on the road and how they were rescued. In early December, Israeli officials launched an intensive public campaign accusing the international community and specifically feminist leaders of standing silent in the face of widespread systemic abuse by Hamas on October 7th. The PR report was rolled out. At the United Nations on December 4th with an event hosted by the Israeli ambassador and former Meta executive Sheryl Sandberg. The feminist organizations targeted by pro-Israel figures were caught flat-footed as charges of violence had not yet been circulated widely. Sandberg was also quoted attacking women's rights organizations in the December 4th New York Times article headline, "What we know about violence on sexual abuse during the October 7th attack on Israel," whose publication coincided with the launch of the PR campaign at the UN. The article also reported by Getterman, Schwartz, and Sella. You gotta break this team apart, man. It's like in school where you have like a 3 kids sitting together that need to be broken up and put on different sides of the classroom. Like when these 3 are together, they actually only make trouble. Relied mostly on claims by Israeli officials and acknowledged the Times had not yet been able to corroborate the allegations. A revealing correction was subsequently applied to the story. Earlier version, evidence police. An earlier version of this article misstated the kind of evidence the Israeli police have gathered in investigating accusations of violence committed on October 7th in the attack by Hamas against Israel. The police are relying mainly on witness testimonies, not on autopsies or forensic evidence. Israel promised that it had extraordinary amounts of eyewitness testimony. Investigators have gathered tens of thousands of testimonies of violence on October 7th, according to Israeli police, including at the site of the music festival that was attacked, that they wrote. Including the site of the music festival that was attacked. Schwartz, Getterman, and Sella reported on December 4th. Those testimonies never materialized. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hammered on the theme of December in his December 5th speech in Tel Aviv. I say no women's rights. I say to the women's rights organizations, to the human rights organizations, you've heard of the assault against Israeli women, horrible atrocities, this mutilation. Where the hell are you? The same day, President Joe Biden gave a speech in which he said, the world can't look away. What's going on? All of us, the government, all of us societies, to forcibly condemn. We all need to forcibly condemn the violence, the sexual violence of Hamas terrorists without equivocation, without exception. It's crazy. It's crazy how it works out, how a single story can pop off so far. But Joe Biden is known for like parroting IDF talking points. He does it constantly. He did it since the beginning of the war, really. So that part isn't really surprising to me. 2-month-long Times investigation still being edited and revised. Schwartz said in the podcast, she started to feel concerned about the timing. So I said, we're missing momentum. Maybe the UN isn't addressing the sexual assaults because no media outlet will come out with a declaration about what happened there. If the Times a story doesn't publish soon, she said, it may no longer be interesting. This is crazy. Schwartz said the delay was explained by her to her internally as we don't want to make people sad before Christmas. Wait, Schwartz said the delay was explained to her internally as we don't want to make people sad before Christmas. Yo, we don't want to report. We don't want to post a trumped up story of witness testimonies as as actual evidence before Christmas, because that would just be a total bummer. That'd be a bucket of bummer. That'd be a bucket of bummer, dude. She also said the Israeli police sources were pressuring her to move quickly to publish. Wait, what? She was getting, wait, what? She was getting it. Wait, what? She was getting pressured by the Israeli police? She was still in contact with them? Israeli police sources were pressuring her to move quickly to publish. She said they asked her, what, does the New York Times not believe that assaults happen here? Schwartz felt like she was in the middle. I'm also in this place. I'm also an Israeli, but I also work for the New York Times, she said. So all the time I'm like in this place between a hammer and an anvil. I'm always between making propaganda for Israel and journalistic integrity. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place, man. More propaganda or doing my job effectively. Before Xmas. Yeah, hammer, lie, anvil, do not lie. This poor woman. Quite the conundrum. The December 28th article, Screams Without Words, opened with a story about Gal Abdush. Okay, let's skip forward a little bit here. WhatsApp messages to her family, but it doesn't mention that the family members believed that the critical messages to make Israeli office doesn't believe that. Sorry. The Times reporting mentions WhatsApp messages from Abdush and her husband to their families, but doesn't mention that some family members believe the critical messages make the Israeli officials' claims implausible. As MetaWise later reported, Abdush texted her family at 6:51 a.m. saying that they were in trouble at the border. At 7 a.m., her husband messaged to say she'd been killed. Her husband messaged to say she'd been killed. Okay. Like 9 minutes later, her family said the charring came from a grenade. It doesn't make any sense, said Abdush's sister, that in a short time span, they assaulted her, slaughtered her, and then burned her. Speaking about the assault accusation, her brother-in-law said the media invented it. This is probably one of the craziest things ever, because they framed the Abdush story as like it's like the story with like the number one evidence that they have, the most graphic story that they have to be the hook, basically. and the anchor for the entire story. It's the hook and the anchor. What and this and they didn't even mention how their family said it's invented. It was a media invention that apparently she had been she had died in 9 minutes. Oh, dude. Another relative suggested the family was pressured under. Another relative suggested the family was pressured under false pretenses to speak with reporters. Abdish's sister wrote on Instagram that the Times reporters mentioned that they want to write a report in memory of Gal, and that's it. Oh wow! If we knew the title would be about assault and butchery, we would have never accepted. In its follow-up story, the Times sought to discredit her initial comment, quoting Abdish's sister saying she had been confused about what had happened and was trying to protect my sister. That's crazy. What? That's actually crazy. Wait a second. Pause. I need to mark this one down so I can come back here. That's actually the craziest thing I've ever heard. Okay, yeah, here it is. Well, let's see. Yeah, here we go. Oh, that's who this is. This is a picture of the Abdush family. These are the people who they were apparently lying about. They're the headline. I was like, who are these people? This is the people. Describe the case of Gal Abdush. Gal Abdush. All right. Killed. His family said they fear the same. Since publication of the Times, a few family members have denied or cast doubt on the possibility that she was abused, including another brother-in-law who said they spoke to Abdush's husband before he was killed. Critics have also seized an Instagram comment by Miral Alter. Oh, geez. Zvika, okay. Zvika's wife and one of Miss Abdush's sisters, suggesting that the Times misled the family about the focus of the article. Miss Alter, with whom the Times did not interview before the article was published, deleted the comment shortly after posting, but critics circulated the images of it to assert falsely that the family had renounced the article. Last week, Miss Alter told the Times that she was upset that her post had been used to question whether Hamas had abused women. When she made it, she had been confused about what happened and was trying upset about her post. She was upset her post had been used to question whether Hamas abused women, but that's not about her sister specifically. You just asked her about how do you feel about people using this to say that Hamas didn't abuse any women. That's not the same question about her sister, which is what this talk is about specifically. Wait, this is an expert level sidestep only a journo can do. And that when she made it, she had been confused about what had happened and was trying to protect her sister. Did she suffer? Did she die right away? She said, I want to hope she didn't suffer, but we will never know. That's crazy. Okay. That's remarkable. Okay. Thank you, New York Times. Very interesting, I must say. That's probably one of the most interesting things I've read for the New York Times in a while. Such as they were pressed under false pretenses to speak with the reporters. Abdish's sister wrote on Instagram that the Times mentioned that they want to write an article in the memory of Gal, but that's it. The woman who filmed Abdish's October 7th, filmed Abdish on October 7th, told the Israeli site Ynet that Schwartz and Sella had pressured her into giving the paper access to her photos and videos for the purposes of serving Israeli propaganda. They called me again and again and explained how important it is to Israeli Hasbara. Wait, what is to Israeli Hasbara. She recalled using the term for public diplomacy, which is a practice that refers to Israeli propaganda efforts directed at internal audiences. Directed at international audiences. Wait, what? I gotta see this shit. And also, why is none of this shit in the Intercept? Why is none of this stuff in specifically? What is it? Why isn't it specifically in like archived links instead of just like normal links that can be deleted? Anybody know how to read Hebrew? Anyone know how to read Hebrew? Oh shit, in Hebrew their ass is right fucking backwards, man. I don't know, I can't translate. It won't let me translate this whole page, so I can't take a look at it right now. But it seems to link to an actual article. That's why how did they reach you from the New York Times through Instagram story? First, I didn't attach any meaning to it. I didn't understand how important it was, but they didn't give up. They called me again and again and explained the importance it was to the Israeli Hasbara. They really invested in it. It was important for them to know every detail. And I understood from them that it was a significant visual evidence of sex crimes committed on October 7th. That's why they clung so much to my testimony. I saw how it was and said, okay, I'll help them. So the whole world will know. I had dozens of conversations with them, photographs, recordings, and 2 reporters spoke with me. Adam Sella and Anat Schwartz repeatedly went down to the smallest details, shooting angles, distances, minutes. It was important for them to verify every detail, they said, and explain how it was important to the Israeli international propaganda work. Okay. Oh, it's from right to left? I hate that. Let's see. For more than 2 weeks, the photo took on the grounds of the party. The video and pictures. Firstly uploaded the video to her Instagram page. Her thousands of followers responded. They recognized the woman. Comprehensive investigation by the New York Times would lasted 2 months. It was written that Gal is one of the women who were assaulted on October 7th in the article, which includes particularly difficult testimonies and descriptions. Not much is known about what happened to late Gal and Naji. I think that's her husband. Let's see. Trying to find anything about her here. I hope Emmett will return alive. She is a fighter. Arrows. Here we go. Sorry, and I realized at every moment that she was in danger. Okay, I need to find this quote specifically. How did they reach you? Okay, here's one thing. I think I found it. I hope so, at least. Fighter decided to take. When did you decide to take upload videos, publish stories, saw photos and understood for loved ones? This isn't from her family. This is from the person who took the picture. She was murdered. How did they reach you from the New York Times? The historical way. I don't know if that's right. Well, the historical way, the old-fashioned way, I guess. At first, I didn't attach any meaning to it. Was it giving up? We read that significant. Until Schwartz repeatedly went down to the smallest details. I didn't like nature parties. Said before the attack began, Wesley returned to her. The first thing I thought was Amit. We're good friends of ours. Okay. I guess this is mostly about how they were pestering this person. They were like really trying to get her, and also they're really trying to get her, and it seems they also. She said that it's important to the Israeli Hasbara, but that doesn't come up here in this translation. Yeah. Oh, but they changed it from Hasbara to advocacy. It's really important to Israeli advocacy. So it seems like they were really trying. Yeah, that's kind of a crazy statement. Is that just me? But that seems like a crazy statement for a journalist to be like, yo, make sure to give us this. It's really important for us to paint Israel in a good light. That seems like that you have like a motive there, not just reporting. That's not reporting, but it's editorializing, right? That's so wild. Okay. Well, we have more information on that. That's bar. That's the propaganda arm. Whew. No details were ever provided. The Times ultimately reported there were at least 3. On Channel 12 podcast, Schwartz said the last remaining piece she needed for the story was a solid number from the Israeli authorities about the possible survivors of violence. We have 4 that we can stand behind. That's the number. She said she was told by the Ministry of Welfare and Social Affairs. No details were provided. The Times ultimately reported that there are at least 3 women and 1 man who were abused. When the story finally was published, Schwartz described the flood of emotions and reactions online in Israel. First of all, the paper. We gave it a very, very, very prominent piece in which, apropos of all my fears, there was no greater show of confidence than being put on the front page. And yeah, they ran it as a front page story. The reactions were amazing. She loved it. Wow. Time staffers who spoke to the Intercept on the condition of anonymity and for fear of professional reprisal began describe the Screams Without Words article as being the product of the same mistakes that led to the disastrous editorial note and retraction on Rukimi, oh Lord, Kalamichi's podcast Caliphate, and print series on the Islamic State group. Khan, the current executive editor, is widely known as a prominent protector of Kalamichi. Views not subject to they're not subject to the same level of scrutiny. Wow. And a pattern emerges, right? In an interview with 12, Schwartz said she began working with Getterman in the 7th, and my job was to help him. I was invited to speak on a panel of violence. Getterman dismissed the need for reporters to provide evidence. What we found, I don't want to even use the word evidence because evidence is almost like a legal term, and it suggests that you're trying to prove an allegation or prove a case in court. Wait, in their follow-up article, they literally called them allegations. Getterman told Sandberg, that's not my role. We have our roles, and my role is to document. It is to present information. But you're literally editorializing. You're saying, wait, that's not true. You said you can prove that there was a systemic abuse going on. Yes, you need evidence for that. You need evidence for allegations. Getterman said his mission was to move people. It's really difficult to get this information and then shape it. That's our job as journalists, to get information and to share the story in a way that makes people care, not just to inform, but to move people. And that's what I've been trying to do for a long time. One Times reporter said colleagues are wondering what the balance of approach might look like. And I'm waiting to see if the paper will report in depth, deploying the same resources on the United Nations report that documented horrors committed against Palestinian women. I think the answer seems to be at the moment, no. Wow, that was actually a really good read by the Intercept. They put together some good stuff. There are definitely some problems with their citation work. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna dock off some points for that. But the New York Times, they've got some internal issues that they've got to deal with there. I don't know if I want to pull up anything from them anymore. Like, I knew it was bad, but this bad is kind of wild. That's kind of crazy.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.